Now, before I actually get into what I want to talk about with this video, it does need to be stated at this point in LeBron James' career, he's still a top 5 NBA player at this moment. He, at the very least, is the second best player to ever play NBA basketball. With that being said, there have been obvious issues not only with this Los Angeles Lakers team, but before with the Cleveland Cavaliers and before with the Miami Heat, of a need of a second superstar. And even in some cases, like in Miami and like so far with Russell Westbrook and the Los Angeles Lakers, there has been a need to have 2 to 3 other, I shouldn't say 2 to 3, 1 to 2 other superstars to play alongside LeBron James. And, there's a saying that goes, and not just basketball, especially not basketball, mostly just life. Are you willing to sell your soul to try to accomplish everything you've ever wanted in your life? And for the Los Angeles Lakers, when they traded for Anthony Davis, and this year when they traded for Russell Westbrook, they decided to sell their soul two times to try to be a great team. Now, I understand there's a lot of candidates out there that, honestly, I had ahead of Eberflus, namely guys like Eric Bieniemy, namely guys like Kellen Moore, namely like a lot of other guys around the NFL who I probably had slated ahead of Matt Eberflus due to the fact that a lot of other guys have probably proved a little bit more than Eberflus has in the past 4 years. When you total up the players and the names that have been shipped out of LA or have not been brought back, you see names like Alex Caruso. The Lakers could use Alex Caruso. They could use Lonzo Ball right now. They could use, for sure, Brandon Ingram. For sure, Josh Hart. For sure, Kyle Kuzma. For sure, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. All 6, 7 guys that they have lost over the past 4 or 5 seasons would be adding to the Los Angeles Lakers, would make the Lakers by far the best team in the NBA right now. There's a couple interesting things to kind of ponder with Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones. One is, could Brian Daboll even make Daniel Jones good? Like I said, there already has been a track record with Daniel Jones. He hasn't been able to make it work with multiple offensive coordinators and head coaches. Maybe the issue is Daniel Jones. However, if the issue is not Daniel Jones, is Brian Daboll really the guy to turn Daniel Jones into a good quarterback? Well, he does have the record of turning Josh Allen into a really lowly looked upon prospect coming out of Wyoming into the one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL today. Now, is Daniel Jones going to be Josh Allen 2.0? Probably not. There's no real way to just replicate what Josh Allen does on a game-by-game basis for the Buffalo Bills and their franchise. However, what you can say is Daniel Jones does do some of the things well that Josh Allen also does well. Daniel Jones has a decent enough arm. Daniel Jones, like Josh Allen was early in his career, a little bit inaccurate, but that can be fixed, like we saw with Josh Allen. Daniel Jones is every bit as athletic as Josh Allen is. I know a lot of people aren't going to be able to admit that because nobody watches New York Giants games, which I don't blame you. But with that being said, Daniel Jones, I think, ran a faster 40 time. I think has a higher vertical jump. He's as athletic as Josh Allen is. Make no mistake about that. And if Brian Daboll is unable to unlock that potential with Daniel Jones like he was able to unlock with Josh Allen, then there's no reason to believe that Josh Allen, or Daniel Jones actually, will become one of, if not, I won't say the best quarterback in the NFL, but he has a chance under Brian Daboll to unlock a new gear and become a great quarterback in this league. The issue is NBA players who play with LeBron James cannot have any sort of sense of being unproven in the league. After that first year with LeBron James in LA, Lonzo Ball did not prove that he could play with LeBron James yet. Brandon Ingram didn't prove it. Kyle Kuzma didn't prove it, even though he did get to stick around. Josh Hart didn't prove it, apparently. And that's why Hart, Ball, and Ingram went to New Orleans. The issue was Anthony Davis didn't prove nothing either. And that's why now, when the spotlight was put on him, the Lakers have not been anywhere near a top team in the NBA, even though they put all their chips in on the Anthony Davis, jackpot. Add on to that with this last trade that they made. They trade away Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was a solid, proven wing. They trade Kyle Kuzma, who was an ever-improving forward, who I think right now is playing some of the best basketball he's ever played in his life. And, not bringing back Alex Caruso, but deciding to sign Taylor Horton Tucker to a 3-year, $30 million deal, especially when you compare what Taylor Horton Tucker did for the Lakers compared to what Alex Caruso did for the Lakers and what Alex Caruso is doing now for the Bulls. There's obvious issues with team structure that happens for this LeBron James Lakers team. And it's not like it's an issue that's happened only now with the Lakers and LeBron James. LeBron James has had this issue with his teams before in Cleveland. He's had these issues before in Miami. When you look at, that last year in Miami, when Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh weren't performing at incredible levels, they were relying on Mario Chalmers, Norris Cole. There was, Joel Anthony moments spread out throughout that Miami Heat era. Udonis Haslem was past his prime, even though he still gave him good minutes. Team structure has always been an issue with any LeBron James team, especially in the last 6 to 7 years of it. And when you factor in the fact that he's always going to be probably, if not the highest paid player in the NBA, he's going to be one of the top 4 or 5 players paid in the NBA. That doesn't help their team either, because at this point, especially when you add in Anthony Davis, who is another $25 to $30 million, when you add in Russell Westbrook, who's another $30 million, they are in salary cap hell. And there's nobody in the NBA who wants to help the Lakers, who wants to make a trade with the Los Angeles Lakers to make them better. Nobody wants to do that. Part of that is Los Angeles Lakers. Nobody really wants to see the Lakers win in NBA circles. I mean, yes, you say the NBA is better when the Lakers are winning, but people say that about the Knicks too. Nobody actually wants the Knicks to be winning the finals, except for people in New York. People only want their team to win. So that's why these trades that we think about, sending Russell Westbrook to Houston for John Wall, or sending Russell Westbrook to anywhere for anybody. Getting rid of Russell Westbrook just off of subtraction is an addition for the Los Angeles Lakers. And for a lot of the teams in the NBA right now, gaining an asset in Russell Westbrook would be a subtraction, especially if they're giving up first-round picks or promising young players. There's nothing that the Lakers can get right now that would actually improve their situation because of how the rest of the league views not only the Lakers' situation. They don't want to help the Lakers. They don't want to help LeBron, especially if you're an Eastern Conference team. The other 13 teams that he didn't play for, why would they want to help LeBron? He'd kick their ass for 15 years. But getting back to the original point of, does LeBron James ruin, or did he ruin the Los Angeles Lakers? Obviously, it's not only on LeBron, because I think there were other trade deals that Rob Pelinka could have executed to try to get not only Anthony Davis, but he probably could have traded a lot of his pieces, especially if they waited a year or two. I mean, if you're talking about this team when Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart and Kyle Kuzma are each going into their 4th or 5th years respectively, and they're still not winning the finals, then yeah, you probably look to offload those guys for superstars. But when they wait not as long as they probably should have, they don't get an actual return on investment that is valuable. When you trade 3 solid role players at that time, and now you're looking at 3 guys who are solid starters for their teams, and in Brandon Ingram's case, an all-star, you're trading 3 really good players for 1 probably top 10 talent. That's not enough return for 3 role players. Now, that's not me saying that Anthony Davis can't bring to the table more than those 3 players combined. I think when you look at Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart, what they are able to do as the 3 of them adding to a team is not what Anthony Davis can do, though. Anthony Davis proved in New Orleans that he cannot be the number 1 superstar on the team to lead them to the playoffs. They made the playoffs 1 year, and Anthony Davis 7 years there, I believe, and they won 1 playoff game. Actually, I don't even know if they won the playoff game. I think they got swept because Steph Curry broke their heart. And with all that being said, everything being put together, the Lakers also put a lot of faith in some players who probably, I wouldn't say they don't deserve the faith, because Melo and Russell Westbrook and Dwight Howard are proven NBA players, but they are players who don't put the Lakers in favorable situations going forward. I would count 6 or 7 guys between Russ, Melo, Taylor Horton Tucker, Dwight, DeAndre Jordan, Trevor Ariza, some other guys, whether you want to look at Wayne Ellington or Avery Bradley. They don't put the Lakers in more favorable positions. Avery Bradley is a good vet, but if you're playing Avery Bradley 36 minutes, you obviously have the worst guard on the court You obviously have a guy who's not going to develop into much more than he is right now. And you have a guy who is just basically going to be a discount, what, maybe a discount Marcus Smart at his very best. That's not something you really want to rely on every single day. I think really the problem I'll end this with, and this is something, like I said, with LeBron James has been the issue his whole entire career. Building a championship with LeBron James as your number one superstar is a very unforgiving task because it's never going to be a process. It's always going to be a 1 year thing. We look at this 1 year at a time. If we cannot win the finals right now with the roster we have constructed, we need to overhaul it. We need to get new vets. We need to get new young guys. We need to get new coaching staff. We need to get new everything. The only time the roster did get overhauled and the coaching staff didn't get booted out of town for a team that LeBron James played for was Miami, because Miami actually understood what they were doing, getting LeBron James. They knew they still had Dwayne Wade. They added another superstar in Chris Bosh. Los Angeles kind of just let LeBron walk all over them. Everything that LeBron James wanted, he got. And we're seeing right now the Los Angeles Lakers have been way worse for it, even though they ended up winning that NBA Finals in 2020. There's going to be an asterisk on it for, the rest of NBA history. And when you look at it and you compare LeBron James' 4 rings to anyone else's, whether it's 6 rings with Michael Jordan, 11 with Bill Russell, a lot of people are going to discount what he did in the bubble because, it wasn't a regular situation. And, it's going to be a really dark time for the Lakers once LeBron retires because, when you look at it, they have no chance to draft a promising young player with a draft pick until 2025 unless they get first-round picks for maybe Anthony Davis or Malik Monk or, maybe they get a first-round pick out of Russell Westbrook. Either way, Los Angeles Lakers, in my opinion, have been ruined. And a lot of it has to do with LeBron James.